Okay. John.
Yep.
We're back. We're back.
We're here again.
We're back, man. We're back. Pleasure.
Another interesting week in tech.
Another phenomenal week, man. Let's just get straight to it. I think the first thing for me, I think the less kind of more non-obvious topic that really caught my eye this week was it's kind of buried within some reports that Microsoft was starting to pull back on its Claude, token usage and spend.
Yeah.
And look, for some people, they're just saying, look, I'm calling it now, market top, a bubble has arrived, it's about to collapse and it's about to crash. Yeah,
About to pop.
exactly. And I wanted to get your perspective on it because I think there's two angles that are important. I think ultimately you had companies like Microsoft, you had companies like Meta that, allegedly were having leaderboards on who's spending the most tokens.
Yeah.
And then naturally there are some questions around what's the ROI of that spend. So I guess from you, really, I want to hear what actually is the case. Why would you even go around or go about that path of getting people to have a leaderboard and measure and reward just token usage rather than the outcomes or product quality?
Yeah, that's a very good one. I saw it as well. I saw from a couple of companies, not just even Microsoft. Microsoft is obviously the biggest headline because they're one of the main guys funding or who have been funding OpenAI and the rest. I saw from Uber as well, they had a monthly cap on how much employees could spend, which is interesting. And then in hindsight, it's like, this was kind of obvious that this is going to happen. Of course now there's a cap because you can't just keep spending like that. But I think there is a reason why they started off that way, especially for companies like Meta, companies like maybe Google and Microsoft, who they just encourage you to use as much AI as possible. And I think there's two reasons, but I think the first one is they have spent so much. They've spent so much. There's so much market cap that's gone around, and they need to, in order to get to the money back, they need to be able to show out there that, okay, this is how you're expected to use it. They need to be the leaders. So they need to tell people, you need to just keep spending because it's very important. And then obviously other companies don't want to be left behind. You're like, you see the big guys spending all this much on AI, you feel like if you don't do it, you're going to miss out on something. So I think that's one of the reasons. The other one, actually, I think there's actually about three reasons, but one else comes to my mind. But the other one there is, I think another important thing for them is they needed to use it to train, especially a company like Meta, and even Google as well. So they want to be able to train their own models. And the best way for them to do this is internally. They see how they've got tens of thousands of developers writing code every day. So the more you use it, the more data you're able to collect, the more they're able to see and to be able to train. Because Meta doesn't want to be stuck using closed models forever. It's very expensive.
Yeah, that in itself is interesting. I definitely want to come to that as well. But
they don't want to be stuck using closed models forever. Google also wants to train their own models to be as good as possible. Microsoft is trying to get off OpenAI hook. So they want to have their own models as well, which I think they've already released some recently. So they're trying to encourage everyone, just use it, just keep using it. Let's just use it for training. There was something interesting, I don't know if you saw, where they got Zuckerberg on a recording.
I don't think I did, actually.
Oh, yeah. So, Meta had lots of layoffs lately. Yeah. And then something else they did was they started moving a lot of engineers, even managers and all of them, made them ICs, individual contributors, and even senior engineers. They started moving them from whatever they were doing into AI training. So they've got senior engineers now doing AI training. So basically they've moved them to looking at AI responses, generating scenarios for AI to build, which, as you can imagine, for a senior engineer, that's a ridiculous thing to be doing at that level. But that just shows you how important they felt they needed to catch up in terms of AI training, which is why they encourage all of the ridiculous spending. And I think the I've said the last point, which kind of ties into the first one, is if AI, obviously, as time is passing, we're starting to see the capabilities and how much it actually improves productivity and helps. You don't want to find out after a couple months that the other company spending so much have multiplied their productivity by so much, and then you're left behind. So in the moment you're thinking, well, if AI is going to improve each of my developers' productivity, I can afford for them to at least be able to use it as much as possible, at least 10x their productivity, and we can just start creating maybe new products or whatever it is they think is going to lead to. So you don't really want to be left behind. It's also part of the risk. It's like, okay, you know what, this is a risk. We might as well spend on it and hope we don't get left behind. So I think those are some of the reasons why it probably makes sense.
You know what, actually? you actually said a few things there that for me were unintended consequences, but were actually fascinating, each one. And I want to crack through them kind of in reverse order of importance, actually, because I think firstly that point on having senior engineers doing the labeling and things like that in kind of data preparation. It's crazy. The headline sounds crazy, right? Obviously, what I found fascinating though is if you go and we think back, I think it's probably maybe 12, 18 months ago when they've gone and spent that 14, 15. Was it somewhere from 14 to 30 billion on Scale AI, according to whatever report you believe? Yeah. They brought in this now known as visionary founder and leader, the Alexander Wang guy, the Scale founder and ex-CEO.
What do they call them? The something lab. I don't remember what.
Scale AI they were called.
Yeah, Meta created this lab, I don't remember what they called it.
But basically based on super intelligence.
Yeah, super intelligence lab. I think that's what they called it. Yeah.
But effectively, a lot of that was based on the acquisition of Scale AI, right?
True.
And so it's funny because that business that was a multi-billion-dollar business was created to effectively label and prepare data for AI models to use. So I wonder where that strategy came from. Was that just an extension or proliferation of what Scale AI was doing, and was that why they spent so much money on that, to be able to have data quality as a competitive advantage? I'm curious about that because the headline made it seem ridiculous. Mark obviously saw so much intrinsic value in that capability that we often talk about things that today look strange, but in the future people will look back on and think it was a masterstroke. I really am curious as to see, do they start at some point having much better outputs from their models and their quality as a result of them putting so much more focus onto that data quality, training and prepreparation than the others seem to have done. Well, we don't know yet.
That's interesting.
But we don't know yet. But I'm curious, and I wondered if there was something within that. Yeah. The second one that I think is interesting is you said that they want to get off Anthropic. Effectively, they want to start using their own models at scale. That really feeds through into my kind of, it depends how you look at it, bull or bear case on whether we're in a bubble or not. I think a few things across the stack need to be true for us to not be in a bubble, and that use of Claude's kind of tokens of the hyperscalers is a really interesting one that I want to come back to. I do just want to get to the real kind of crux of why this is a stupid idea first, right? Yeah, for me, respectfully, because I look at those things and what they're doing, what you said there, really all these things are just examples of kind of game theory, really. Like they don't want to look at others and retrospectively think that they might have produced more value from token maxing. But realistically, can you really think of any other venture or any other type of kind of productivity, any other task, any other project in business where the goal was just to spend as much money as possible?
Yeah.
Let's just really unpack that. That's because that's what they're saying. When you hear tokens, and that's why when people create these businesses, they like to talk about credits or tokens instead of just dollars. But because that's what it does. It extracts you from thinking about the impact of what you're doing. We're really just telling people, we're going to make a leaderboard of who has spent the most money as possible. And we're going to try and optimize that. We want you to be the person who spent the most. You spent $1 million, he spent 2 million. and the metric is not even necessarily about what was produced, what was the ROI, what was the impact, what was the outcome, just who spent the most money. To me, it's absurd. Ludicrous, absurd. And when I saw that happening, for me, we were laughing about, this is a market top signal, the market's now about to crash. For me, when I looked at that, I started thinking,
Yeah.
This could be the beginnings of a bubble, you know, because
Yeah.
really, when people talk about what's the definition of a bubble, what they're actually saying is the value is now becoming, you know, separated from the price of assets is now becoming separated from the intrinsic
actual
value. Exactly. And when you start seeing people do irrational things like that, where
That
they're
is
just
exactly
trying
the
to,
definition of-
they're just trying to optimize for cost, and they're not thinking about the ROI, they're not thinking about the margin impact, they're not thinking about the cash impact. When you start seeing people doing things like that, for me, that's when alarm bells start really ringing. And so for me, that was one of the dumbest things I ever saw.
Yeah.
And I was happy to see that most of them appeared to have kind of, at least publicly, moved away from that strategy, because it's a ridiculous thing to do.
Yeah, because
Straight
genuinely,
up.
that makes, there is no business whose the goal is to spend it, because the whole point of a business is to make money. So
Return, yeah.
And someone is like, oh, that guy spent more than me.
Yeah.
And you know, you're thinking it might affect my promotion as well.
Yeah.
They're not checking what I'm spending on. Let's just go burn it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna run up even more then. Let me spend even more money.
Yeah.
So I think that was honestly ludicrous, ridiculous, absurd. One of the most concerning and stupidest things I saw throughout this whole journey of AI. I'm glad, hopefully, that is the end of token maxing. and hopefully for me, we won't have to revisit that topic again, because for me, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
The next one, and I think this is a good segue into our next topic as well. I was thinking a little bit more kind of critically and deeply around, because people keep talking about what needs to be true for it to be a bubble. Again, I like to think of it the other way. What needs to, you know, be true for this to actually work? And when I think about it, what we've seen so far, when you look at the total returns to AI so far, really, we've already talked about the compute layer on prior episodes in pretty decent depth, to be fair. The viewers will hold me, they'll hold me true on that one. But for me, we've talked about that quite a lot of depth now. We talked about the compute layer, we talked about the memory layer, we talked about the chip makers, and how in the first few years of the waves of AI, they seem to have taken most of the total return so far. And I just quickly on that, when you go back at the prior transformations, whether that was the transition to mobile or the transition to cloud, again, it always comes in waves. The first phase and wave is always at that kind of infrastructure layer, because you have to build the foundations first. People have to spend up front to be able to then go and build cool products. So most of the returns in the first phase tend to be at that infrastructure layer.
Yep.
Then you move to phase 2, where it's cool little applications, mobile apps, software, AI. And that's when the next layer comes, and the returns start to shift in terms of the proportion of the return starts to shift towards the next layer down. And I just think, again, for this to be true and for this to not be a bubble, which again, don't get me wrong, I have absolutely, I am one of the most convicted people you'll find that it's not a bubble. So let's just make that clear and obvious right now. Let's have it right. But I do think that ultimately, it is going to need at some point to extend beyond the hyperscalers who are getting all the returns of AI. Because when you look at it so far, we've talked about the compute layer. When you think around the kind of product and model layer, most of it for public companies will come to, OpenAI, and will come to Anthropic shortly, obviously. But for public companies, most of it has gone to your Googles and in your Geminis. It's gone to even Copilot seems to have driven serious gains to Microsoft in terms of revenue growth. I think I was reading yesterday that Google, in terms of net margin, they're having a year-on-year increase of kind of something with 60 to 80%. So,
ridiculous
so yeah. So you're now, and this is obviously on some of the biggest bases possible, right? We're talking about hundreds of billions of revenue. And so for me, what that's saying to me is already the people who are actually selling AI, whether they're selling a Gemini, they're selling a chatbot or an LLM, or they're selling an agent, to me, that it's already proven that the return is there. Not only is the revenue, skyrocketing, 2x on massive bases, but we are seeing the correlating impact and margin expansion as well. So that's the perfect dream, right? It's faster, higher growth on a higher margin. So for me, that puts to bed the question around whether AI products themselves will, generate a return. So for me, that layer that chapter is closed to me. What it will need to extend to, though, is people who are not actually selling AI products. So they're not selling an LLM or an agent or, some of those actual, or even an AI chatbot. Their actual products that are enabled with AI are going to need to have a clear return as well. So whether that's a productivity or efficiency gain that they can quantify and go back to say, look, we literally physically saved this much in operating cost because we've deployed AI. Then we've got the return to, prove that this is something we need to keep investing in. Again, the first one is proven.
Yeah.
At the enterprise level, it's not obvious yet, right? It's coming, and again, having been in consulting, I've seen how long these enterprises take to really deploy and start to maximize the benefits of any new initiative, let alone something as innovative as AI. But I think it's going to need to move beyond Google, Amazon, Meta growing extremely quickly and getting much better revenues and margins by paying Anthropic and investing in Anthropic so that they can, and OpenAI, right? So that they can, boost up their margins and returns.
Yeah.
It is going to need to proliferate and go wider than that and hit every single 90% plus of enterprises out there. Yeah. That's my view on what needs to be true for it not to be a bubble.
Yeah. I think regarding that is like, for most of those companies, I mean, I know now I've started seeing a lot of like companies specializing in like specific agents. I think the main difficulty is that like a lot of companies have very specific use cases or problems that they need to solve, and is a bit difficult to integrate AI directly, especially as AI is not very deterministic as well. So I think now we're starting to move, and people are starting to focus more like on agentic workflows. And I think we would probably soon start to see the more generic integration asides asking the AI to tell you some information about some data you have in the company. Like that's probably already in every organization. You've got like your co-pilots that can tell you something you want to know. But that's not what's going to bring the productivity really. Is the agents that can actually go and specialized agent that can go through like do back office stuff and be able to accelerate all of that. And even in tools that you use all the time, agentic things that can go get information, get data, and actually boost productivity. So I think we are going to start to see that happen, but a bit more slowly. But yeah, definitely, I think the conversation around being a bubble is one that would clearly see that, yeah, this definitely is not what you can call a bubble. Like it's definitely real outcome.
And I agree. And I think when I look at some of the interesting, use cases that I am excited about in enterprise AI, I think of obviously to think around drug discovery, life sciences seems to be quite a big one. There's even on that kind of discovery side, there's this business materials nexus, MatNex that I was looking at, which is quite interesting, where they're effectively just using the AI to find combinations of new materials, precious metals, rare earths that can be used for, use cases around manufacturing or building cars or building, reusable buildings, really trying to extend the capability of what the LLMs can do so that it can actually massively improve the product development cycle. That's an interesting one for me because then you're not just on the cost and efficiency side, you're also on we might actually find new products to sell as a result of this. Yeah,
that's the drug discovery you mentioned just made me even remember what I think Isomorphic is working on, the company that Google bought some years back. And they're trying to develop like AI that basically they will start creating drugs targeted at people. So you walk in there and then they use AI to determine your protein or your whatever they need to do. And they would build a drug because obviously one of the problems you have in medicine today is that something that works for someone, because our bodies are so different, doesn't necessarily work as well for everyone. But just looking at you and like scanning you, they will be able to build a drug targeted specifically at you. And this is an advancement that could only have come because of AI. So I think things like that, as you can imagine, someone just walks in there and then they give you this drug for you.
Hold on, but walks in where? So, so I'm gonna go down to Tesco, and the AI is gonna be telling me I need to take some
I mean,
some medicines. So what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean,
here?
it depends on the deployment. But you can imagine if Isomorphic has a technology, then you probably pay maybe a subscription to them. I don't know. It depends on how they deploy that kind of thing. Or maybe they have partnerships with like hospitals and stuff. And then you go there and they tell you, okay, you need to go into that lab. They would do a scan for you. You walk out here, you get a drug for you.
Look,
Only
if
at you.
If it's in a GP or if it's in a hospital, then cool, man. Cool. Anywhere else, I'm starting. This is starting to sound like a Black Mirror episode, man. I don't know, man. I don't know. We got to be a bit careful.
But we'll start to see things like that like you could never have gotten without AI.
Yeah.
Like really massive leap forward.
Yeah.
I think in the next 2-3 years, we'll start to see really incredible things.
For sure. And just to round it off as well, I am starting to, I was being a little facetious. We are seeing some interesting things. I've heard kind of Shopify, Revolut, ServiceNow doing some very interesting things with their kind of customer service use cases that are all built on LLMs as well. And those are just some examples. We're seeing some.
For sure.